Tēnā tātou, koe hui mai nei tēnei rangi ki te hui tupa tuarima, ka karaki a tātou. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa painamu te moana, hei ara haumari ma tātou i te rangi nei, aroha atu aroha mai, tātou kia tātou, tūturu whakamaua kia tina, haumi huie, taiki. Welcome you all to join us for the 5th webinar series. We welcome your pātai. You can enter your questions in the Q&A section, and Leonie will put these to Ngaropi, our guest today, and at the end of her presentation. Hoia no tēnei te mihi atu kia te koutou, ka tuku te rākau kia koe, Professor Leonie Pihama.
Tēnā tātou. Tūtahi tautoko o te mihi kia koutou katoa I hui mai nei I tēnei wā. Welcome everyone back to this, the 5th webinar for He Waka Eke Noa. For those of you who are new in joining the webinar, what we've been doing is a series of online webinars from the project He Waka Eke Noa, which is a project funded by the MV Endeavour Fund and hosted by Ngā Waiata Tui Research Institute at Unitec. And we're looking at continuing from some earlier work that we've been doing as a research group around Māori cultural frameworks in terms of family violence prevention and intervention. It's a multi-methods project, including a range of whakawhiti kōrero or discussions and interviews, a range of regional hui that we've run, and an online survey that surveyed around 1,500 of our people around their views around family violence prevention, and also to look at levels of prevalence both in the past year and lifetime, and to get some information around the happenings and what was happening for whānau over COVID. So today we're really beginning. We've done the first few seminars really around the projects, detail themselves, some of the initial findings, the original findings from the project that we're at the moment. And we're moving into a series of webinars that are really around practitioner work, both here in Aotearoa and internationally. And we begin today's here at home in Aotearoa with Ngaropi Raumati Cameron from Tūtuma Wahine o Taranaki. And so Ngaropi's talk today is titled Through Reciprocity, Gifts Are Transformed. And she's going to be talking about decolonising, healing, and transformation and transformative ways of being as a journey rather than as a destination. Ngaropi is a foundational member and director of Tūtuma Wahine o Taranaki. She's operated and worked as a senior domestic violence facilitator and educator. She's worked in social services for over 30 years and has been highly committed, particularly to the well-being and to liberation and to tino rangatiratanga and whānau well-being within Taranaki. But it's also been a part of wider national developments, including being a member of Te Rōpū and being a part of developing Māori views within Te Rōpū and Māori perspectives in terms of the national strategy for family violence and sexual violence prevention. She's been engaged in a whole range of approvals panels and other national panels working in the area, really with her aim to transform and to be a part of the wider aspiration of Māori well-being and whānau hapu iwi, hāpori and community well-being. So no reira Ngaropi nau mai ki tēnei wāhanga kei a koe te rākau.
Tēnā korua Leonie rau ko here aroha. Tēnā koutou katoa, e ngā hau e whā, ngā paimanga. Tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora, Leonie, thank you for that generous introduction. Anyway, ko wai ahau, ko he uri ahau no te maunga titohea, ko Taranaki te maunga, ko ngā te mutunga te iwi, ko kai tangata te hapu, ko raumati me mātuku ku whānau, ko Ngaropi ahau. I'm going to just going to get straight into it and just share the screen, and I'm just going to recap on previous kōrero from our previous speakers, from Professor Linda, Leonie and Poe, and from Shirley. And then I'm going to just briefly give you a what I think is a good practice question to reflect on. And it's a question that was put to me about 30 years ago. And then I'm just going to show a practice tool that can support how we can apply Tūpuna knowledge, Tūpuna gifts, their koha that they've given to us. So Linda, those of you who saw before, Linda, you may recall this is the kaupapa Māori principles. I'll just call it a wheel. So Linda reminded us what kaupapa Māori framework is for and what it is not. And it is not for deciding or describing a problem. The kaupapa Māori framework is for action, it's for living, it supports and explains a way of being within a culture, within our culture. The framework is for thinking and organising our thinking, to help us organise our thinking, and it also helps with context. And so there are reasons why it is not about describing a problem, because embedded in the kaupapa Māori principles for engagement are solutions. And there are avenues for creative thinking and creativity. They also hold an enormous space for possibilities. And Linda outlined some of those possibilities. There are possibilities for healing, for redress, compensation, restoration, repatriation, and reconciliation. So these are all positive. They are all forward-moving aspects. So the kaupapa Māori is an action, forward-moving, and it offers possibilities. Another model, a Western model, it might actually refer to them as strength, or even strength-based practice even, okay? So Linda pointed out that the He Oranga Ngākau project added a layer behind the kaupapa Māori principles, and that this layer has a practice application layer within it. And it is in that practice layer, the whānau order indicators for well-being reside. Okay, so I'm just moving through a couple of models here. So at no time did Linda talk about or say that the kaupapa Māori principles say it's okay to hurt or disrespect people. Now, Leonie layered out multiple avenues of mātauranga within just 10 whakatauki, 10. And we literally have thousands available to us. And I mean thousands because we have them as individuals, we have them as whānau, as well as aspects of hapu and as a Māori nation. So, and I always think, our Māori nation, we are rich beyond our imaginations if we just look at whakatauki. So within those 10 whakatauki, Danny spoke to us of values, and values embedded in Tūpuna taonga, and those values are values that speak to us of compassion and empathy, sanctity of relationships, the impact of Tūpuna mokopuna relationships, and how that can journey through the generations, about the care, nurturing, safety, and protection of our tamariki mokopuna, Those whakatauki spoke to the multiple roles we all carry throughout our lives and how they change at different aspects through our lives. And there was a reminder that we are both divine and human. As they spoke to our collectivism, and you know, one of the things that I thought about in relation to that one, I just thought, you know, government departments have got a cheek to be talking to us, Māori, about collective impact. And it's unfortunate that we didn't push back in another way around how that they spoke and laid out collective impact. We know about collective impact, we just didn't get organised. So there were whakatauki that spoke to systems that ensured balance, that emphasise giving and sharing rather than taking. We're not saying they're not saying it's not okay to receive or to take, but the emphasis and the well-being aspect is on reciprocity. They spoke about how to thrive within culture, and that te reo is the connector to all things Māori. There's no way we can move away from it, or we should try to move away from it. And we were also reminded that there is honour in struggle. The whakatauki spoke to, it encouraged us and laid out for us that by actively rejecting colonial patriarchal structures that have undermined mana wahine, we make a significant contribution to reaffirming mana wahine, mana tāne, mana tangata, the sanctity of all human beings. And they also spoke to, just laid out how we could successfully respond in a manner that aligns with and is consistent with tikanga. Nowhere did any of those whakatauki say, you know, lie down and be a colonial doormat. Nor did they say that it's not okay to address or respond to abusive or disrespectful attitudes or behaviour from individuals, from groups, or from the Crown state sector. Shirley spoke to the He Waka Eke Noa national strategy and showed the Te Pai Ora as an analysing tool. And she reminded us that every number, every statistic is a person, and standing by every person is a household, a whānau, a hapu, an iwi, a whakapapa. And she also alluded to a growing awareness by whānau of Crown state violence and its daily impact on whānau wellbeing. And Professor Sir Potemara, you know, what an amazing koha that he gave, what an amazing koha he gave to us by bringing forward his kuia for us to meet. And also we could see her generous koha to us. Well, actually it's a koha to the nation, to the Māori nation, and actually to the whole nation, that her koha was him. And at no time did I hear him say he was treated harshly for being a haututu, because I'm sure he was. He's a Māori boy, so he was haututu. You know, he wasn't treated harshly for being inquisitive or noisy in the ngahere by any of his elders. And so from this, we can see that Tūpuna endowed us with great gifts. But what we have to understand is that their gift is only half of a gift. It's half of a truth. The other half is that the gift is insufficient. It's not enough. Sorry, Professor Paul. So the responsibility doesn't lie with our tūpuna alone. The other half belongs to us. Okay, we must participate. We must be active, and we have to participate in our culture, in our communities, to activate and transform the gift. So it's now our responsibility to do the mahi, to show gratitude, to honour Tūpuna efforts, to honour Tūpuna efforts. They did the best they could at that time. It's our responsibility to claw back our birthright, and that's to be fully in charge and in control of our lives. And it's our responsibility to apply their gifts as only we can, that's you and me, to us, because they are our gifts. They are Māori gifts gifted to mokopuna Māori from the past into the now, into the future. And we can't give them away. And we can't give them away until we have done our bit and transformed them. And this is why we need to think a little more clearly about the gifting of names to Pākehā organisations and the way government agencies are taking our names and applying them to racist structures. But I think Professor Po Temara has he's done more than his half in relation to the gift. He's done more than half of transforming what he was gifted from his elders, and I'm sure he has more that he wants to achieve and contribute. So one of the reflections that I had for me in listening to the previous speakers was the memory that came to me was a question that was given to me by a very wise queer from Ngāti Kahungunu, Wairarapa, Dr. Janice Wen. It's probably about 3 decades ago now. She asked me, what is my practice within the context of Māori knowledge? And, you know, I had an initial reaction where I probably stopped breathing for a minute. And I just thought, what the hey? You know, but what came forward very quickly was, of course, cultural safety and Here Hapati Ramsden. So Janice was asking me, how do I apply what I know to be culturally safe practice? So I'm just asking you to keep that question in mind, because this is an excellent practice question for practitioners, and it's a question to reflect on. How do you practice within the context of Māori knowledge? So I'm going to show 6 relatively common values that have all been touched on by previous speakers, and how they can be utilised by practitioners and utilised by whānau that we work with. Whānau who are recovering from the effects of colonial trauma, so historical trauma, intergenerational trauma. So I'm asking you to be mindful again that the major portion of a recovery journey is to heal from the intergenerational effects of colonial domination and forced dispossession of our homelands and our economic wealth. Our homelands were our economic wealth. And to be clear about the institutional racist cement that holds that stuff in place. So here you can see there's again a couple of wheels, we call them the values in whānau order wheel values, and hopefully you will see how just 6 values, and like, as I said, relatively common values can be utilised, and how the 6 whānau order well-being indicators are interconnected. So, you know, to disturb the peace or to disturb or ruin the peace of a whānau, you know, it's extremely abusive and destructive, and it's often deliberate. So please, something else to keep in mind. I want you to keep in mind the 3 aspects from the 2nd Task Force report on whānau Māori violence. It's a 2nd report commissioned by Tariana, and it was edited by Tamati Kruger. It is available online. So there are 3 aspects I want you to keep in mind as well. And they that came from that report. That one, the first is to dispel the illusion that violence within whānau Māori is normal, because it is not. The second is to remove the opportunity for it to occur. And the third is transformative practice. And as Leonie has said, we know that transformation is a journey. It's a journey, it's not a destination. So there's the two wheels. On the darker side holds the 6 values, and on the lighter side, the flip side, holds the whānau order indicators of well-being. So this screen here, you can just see is the whānau order. Is the 6 values. And so it's in 3, you can see each segment is in 3 sections, and the value is in the center. The next layer is a values marker or an indicator, and the outer layer offers an example, a suggestion, an uplifting, a mana enhancing message, or quite simply it states a fact. So we just break that down further. And this is 3 of those 6 values. And we start, if you read from right to left at Wairua, you know, this section alone should highlight the total differences in Māori worldview and the Pākehā worldview. So it's a spiritual heartbeat, and it's a core of Māori well-being. And it is about reclaiming the divinity of tamariki mokopuna and the sanctity of woman. And it goes, the outer talks about, you know, learn and teach whānau karakia to each other. And there is an example of a relatively easy karakia. Well, not easy, what's easy? Anyway, but it's a taranaki one, kia urumai a hau ora, hau kaha, hau maia, ki runga, ki raro, ki roto, ki waho, riri hau pai mariri. So, Wairua as a practice is the first level on which any of us should be engaging with anybody. And certainly with whānau, this is the first level on which you engage. And, you know, it's natural. For a lot that is lost, these are karakia, and a conversation about Wairua is where, you know, our ngākau Māori resonates. And karakia is a good place to start. The whakapapa talks about the power and strength of our genealogy, and it interconnects absolutely everything. And, you know, and it cements our identity and strengthens our sense of belonging. And what better place to start than pepeha? You know, this is a chance to talk to whānau about belonging, about learning, and about teaching pepeha. So whakapapa is a tool for engagement. We're talking about practice. And whakapono, and I can't stress the importance of this value in relation to a person practicing, practitioners, because it's about a self-monitoring, a self-discipline, and accountability tool. So this whakapono connects the truth. It's about honesty, and it's about integrity, it's about our ethical behaviour. And it does talk about compassion and empathy, which supports understanding. If we're lacking in compassion and empathy for what we're dealing with, then we're lacking in understanding e kore aroha. We can't talk about aroha. So this is about being tika. And so, you know, I always think about the kaimahi and things like that. So don't be tika on your timesheet or things like that, or what you're doing in the community when you're meant to be doing stuff, okay? Because you're going to end up in the tickle. It might be warm and comfortable for a while, but actually it does smells, people know. So, you know, it's also about standing up and standing up and being counted for what you're saying and for your attitudes and your opinions. And this is the other 3 values. If we go to manaakitanga, you can see that, you know, I always think that this is a healthy Māori question. We've got a few healthy Māori questions. And I'm not talking about a Māori health question. It's a healthy Māori question. How do people know you have mana? And if you ask whānau this question, they will tell you. They might not have thought about it like that before, but they will talk to you about it. How do people know that you have mana? And it's by the way you treat people. Mana, you know, mana ki te tangata. And then it just gives a very simple example up there about, you know, doing things together and encourage us to support and care for tamariki and elders in their daily life. The te reo rangatira is, again, you know, this is an uplifting message. You know, even, you know, when te reo rangatira is in the whare, rangatira live there. Yeah, this is very mana enhancing. And there are places we can start. Why not? We've got to start somewhere. Why not start at Ata Māori, Pō Māori? And of course, tikanga, all values come together with tikanga around correct attitude, correct behaviour, correct actions, correct thoughts. And it certainly brings into the frame around violence-free whānau and violence-free whare. So, you know, just address yelling and swearing and hurting children. So those are 6 common values that, you know, I think offer a balanced starting point. For whānau and for practitioners, because these are whānau tools. We get to use them as practitioners, but these are things that are given to the families. And we can align. Well, I'm sure many of you could align several whakatauki in each of those segments. You know, where would you put aroha ki te tangata? Yeah. Where would you put he tūpuna, he mokopuna? Because they easily put in. Where would you put ki tō raurau, ki taku raurau, ka oro ai te iwi? He waka eke noa. These are all whakatauki that we have heard, talked about, that can be put anywhere in any of these 6 value systems. So it's a combination of a value, what it can mean, an example, and things can be slotted into it. So on the other side of that wheel is the whānau order indicators for wellbeing. You know, this really offers an opportunity to be talking to families about whānau order, what it actually is in relation to being a Māori national plan of action. And so all of our whānau would have heard this word, whānau order, but nowhere is there a really clear explanation given to them about how it impacts on them in their lives. Okay. I have to say that it's a good quality card. It's difficult to bend. They make quite good frisbees. Yeah, but I don't care if they families. I don't care if the whānau use them as frisbees, because at some point somebody's going to look at them. Yeah. So on the flip side, we've got the whānau order wellbeing indicators. So this offers an opportunity to kōrero to whānau about whānau order as a national plan. Okay. So each segment lines up with the values side. So wairua on the other side is wairua in the value kōrero. The whānau order indicator is the next segment, and the outer segment offers a direction. It offers a suggestion or a mana enhancing message, or again, it just states the fact. Okay. So reading right to left this time, so just keep in line with the values one. So wairua has been lined up with healthy whānau lifestyles. And the message there is, and for us to reflect and think about, of course, is to promote well-being, strong foundations for behaviour and relationships, and to reclaim and normalise our tūpuna knowledge, our tūpuna taonga, so that they become intergenerational. Be inspired, because the stuff they left up is inspiring. The whakapapa has been lined up with full whānau participation in society, and we're encouraging people to plan and focus on what they want their whānau future to be. challenge the status quo, break new ground and be creative. And this is a fact. Decile is not destiny. And whakapono has been lined up with whānau cohesion, is to keep connected across the generations, you know, and nurturing respectful relationships and honouring, ensuring safety of the young and the elderly, both ends of the spectrum, and that we can craft our own solution. So this is the second half, and again reading from right to left. Just manaakitanga has been lined up with whānau economic security and successful involvement in wealth creation. And this is about planning and strategizing our way out of difficulties. Because we end up in, you know, in difficult times, but we don't often plan how to address it. And if we can, ferret some away for that rainy day, because there is always going to be a rainy day. And again, we're encouraging that and just stating that transformation occurs through choice. And we invite people, you're invited to create an alternative future. It's just, don't give up. Don't give up. Okay? Tūpuna didn't give up. Why should we? So Te Reo Rangatira, again, connects everything. And this has been lined up with confident whānau participation in Te Ao Māori. And it connects iwi, it connects culture, connects community, it connects age and ability related activities. You know, it's about whānau hapu, it's about cultural things, it's about business, it's about sport, it's about mātauranga Māori. And it's an encouragement to be proud. Be proud to be Māori. We are a limited edition. There are so few of us in the world. You can almost count us on one hand, no. But you know, we're countable. There's not a lot of us, so we're a limited edition. And hey, enjoy life. No? Mene, smile. Anyway, and the final one there is tikanga, which has been lined up with whānau self-management. So I think that's a very sensible place to line up whānau self-management. And it talks about supporting whānau leaders, because all our whānau have got leaders, and we've got leaders in different sections of the whānau who are good at doing different things, and we know who to go to. So it is about supporting whānau leaders to focus on their skills, on other skills, on gifts and assets that members possess, and to help each other out, to keep them safe, okay? Maintain generous engagement with everybody and share your gifts. Because one of the things is that we don't, we've all got gifts, but we don't, often we don't know what they are, but others might. And so we encourage people to help people grow those gifts, okay? You know, once we're and still are gardeners, okay? Again, there are multiple whakatauki, pūrākau and kiwaha that can be fitted into each of these segments. And I've just put these up here because all of those values, those 6 values, each can be placed into a section within these segments as well. In fact, several can be put in each one. I'm just aware of time, Leonie. How's our time going? Because there is a planning tool, but I'll leave that for another time. Yeah.
Another 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. So I'll just go back to that then. Yeah. You know, if we look at kaupapa, we would look at time. I would put Wairua in taonga tuku iho, okay? Te reo rangatira in ako Māori, culture preferred pedagogy. Tino rangatira, I would put whakapuno. Ke piki ake ngā raruraru o te kāinga, I would put manaakitanga. Ata, I would put tikanga at ata, the principle of respectful relationships. And I would put whakapapa at kaupapa, the principle of collective philosophy. And again, because there's 7 there, I would put manaakitanga again under whānau, the principle of extended whānau. And then on the other side, Kati te patungako, stop the blows. To the ngākau Māori, I would put wairua. And support intergenerational, I would put whakapapa. Whakapono, around acknowledge their pain. Manaakitanga, around helping people to build their whare of support. And I will put tikanga, around support kaupapa. Māori approaches to practice. And te reo rangatira, around honour Māori aspirations of self-determination. That's just a quick roundup. Others will put different things in there, but it's your practice. It's what makes sense to you and how you can share that with whānau. So some of the things that have been eaten away from our whānau knowledge base is made accessible and understandable so that they can then start to build their own whare of support and create their own whare of shelter and extend it out in that way. The values in the whānau order tool are effective if used with, this is another tool, this one here is about what matters most. There's just 3 simple questions there. It works brilliantly with children, it works with whānau, these are for families to use together. It's what matters most. Why does this matter? And what do you do together now, or what can you do together now? And again, it's in 6 segments or 3 sections. So there can be multiple things, 6 things written on this circle that can change, be wiped out, and other things can be put in as things progress. And the other one that I'll just show you is we just refer to this as the S planning tool, because it's all about S's. And again, it's in 6 segments, and this one's got 4 sections to it. So this is about, this is a planning tool. It's got a magnetic strip on the back of it. It can go on the fridge. A pen goes with it, and it can be written on, and it can be wiped off as things are achieved or as whānau moves through them. So, if we wanted to get something sorted, is what do you need to get sorted right now? And they can put that there. And then the self-determining part is what can they do and what do they need help with? And those things get entered in there. And how will you know if it's been successful? How will you know it's been sorted out? And they put their response in there. And the last one is about sustainability, is how can this be sustained and how will you feed it to make sure that it is sustainable. So this, the planning tool has been really important because, and it has to be included in absolutely everything that we do when working with whānau, because one of the things that that has happened is that we've stopped planning. And what the example we always use is, our tūpuna, we did not get to Aotearoa by accident. That was not an accident. They didn't cook. Captain Cook was an accident. Our tūpuna did not get here by accident. It was planned, it was strategic, and they knew where they were going. And we have to reclaim those aspects of our life as well. A lot of times we just stop planning. We don't save. We can't save, and there are consequences, there are historical reasons why this stuff happens concerning colonial trauma, but we're still often trapped in the quick fix. We're trapped in the here and now, and often instant gratification. I think we understand, we know why this is like it is, but it's about changing, and we know people want to change. We deal with families who want to change. They just want some support to help work their way through some of that stuff. And these are just simple tools to help make that happen. They are always about addressing the violent disruption of colonisation and its fallout on us. And it's another story. Anyway, so that's just a quick roundup on just some of the practice tools that we're using in relation to values and how they come together and how they can be interconnected and used very effectively whānau, and not just with adults. These are used with tamariki mokopuna as well. Have fun, yeah. That's me at the moment. Maybe I should talk about that. Everybody knows, you know, we've got the pound control wheels. We tarted them up, and nobody's allowed to photocopy this stuff. You get the originals, we'll give them to you. You know, how violence affects children, caring for our tamariki mokopuna, nurturing. Whoops, there we go. But what we did was a partnership wheel, which can be used in, you know, when looking at how things are in the home, at relationships, can be used within hapu iwi. I think Glenn successfully used it in relation to addressing treaty breaches within their hapu, and he used those pound control wheels to point this out. So this is a partnership wheel that we have done, and it can be, I think it should be used when dealing with all government departments, something like it, or yeah, anyway. So that's just one of the other little things we play with. Anyway, we okay to leave that there, Leonie?
Fine. If you want to unshare your screen, Ngaropi, and we're good. We've got first question. I really want to invite people to put questions into the Q&A if you have any questions in particular. So this one, Ngaropi tēnā koe, you talked about being proud to be Māori. We're a limited edition. We're both divine and human. Can you share what brings you the ultimate Māori joy in your mahi and in your kāinga to help combat those rain-filled colonial days?
Right. Well, that's a big question, which, what brings, well, because mostly, well, I do get a lot of joy from seeing things progress and seeing things happen with families. Seeing plans being done and paths being done, but I'm also spend a lot of time being bitched as well. I mean, being annoyed about what's happening. At the moment, I think what gives me the most joy, of course, is the tamariki mokopuna. I enjoy working in an intergenerational situation with whānau members, and seeing that wider whānau members are becoming involved and they're getting more of an understanding about what has happened here in Taranaki and the uniqueness of what's happened. Yeah, and you know, every day I just think, well, it's not, you know, it's another day, and I'm here to enjoy it. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a vague roundabout answer, but you know, and at the moment, one of the is I've just been a little folk artist. I do some painting with a combination of all cultures, really. Yeah. So it's doing some of those things for myself. Yeah.
Kia ora. So Gendi Te Kepa has asked, I worked as a case study for the Department of Corrections. Am I able to source some copies of those resources that you shared? So I did put in the chat that to contact Tūpuna Wahine, there's a contact through your website. So is that an appropriate way for people to come to you around some of the wheels, accessing some of the wheels?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we do. We've got them on, we have, and we always have resources available when we attend, you know, when we have, well, when we get back to them again as community kōrero and conferences. You know, we've got a wānanga happening on their kākara in July, which is a Taranaki Māori research. And those things like those resources are always available. You can contact through the website or through our receptionist, just from the email.
Okay.
I think the email, we could put the email up if you could grab it. Bernadette. It's charlotte@tutamawahine.org.nz, and email her. The thing that we do ask is though is that actually, yeah, it's fine to use the wheels. Don't photocopy them. Use the product, and the product is for kaimahi to use, but it's actually for whānau to be given. Yeah. So of course we're more than happy to provide those things. We might charge a fee. We want to cover the cost of printing. Yeah. But otherwise, very much available. The not just the values wheels and the whānau order, but also the planning tools. Yeah.
And the Kaupapa Māori wheels are a part of a bigger package of resources, and I'll put the link up for that as well. He pātai from Lizzie, what's your favourite whakatauki, especially for sharing with tamariki and rangatahi?
Well, I think my favourite whakatauki would be with tamariki and rangatahi is ahako he iti he paunamo. Yeah, because there's a lot within that, that ahako he iti te kōrero, but he nui te whakaaro, and the things that can be put into that. Yeah, ahako he iti he paunamo. I think that's quite lovely, actually.
One of the questions that came up in the whakatauki presentation that I did earlier, Ngaropi, was around some examples of how you use that in practice. So if you're working with a particular whānau or tamaiti, and you have that whakatauki, how would you kind of ground that, and how would you give some way of having whānau think about it? How would you talk about that?
Well, of course, it depends on what's happening. Yeah. What's happening where you're at within with what you're doing in that. But if you are doing something and that comes up for you, I wouldn't go into somewhere with a whānau or with that in mind. But if I'm with them or I'm in a group and that comes up, it comes up from your ngākau, well, he kōrero. Because it does happen, he wairua. There are always greater forces at work. It's never just about you as a practitioner or the whānau there. There are always other forces. There are always other energies in that room, and you should respond to that whakatauki like that comes forward. But you've got to have some in your repertoire as well. Don't wait for the tūpuna to pluck something out of you if it ain't there. It's like trying to get a car to go and there's no petrol in it. Won't happen. All the karakia in the world won't make it go. You've got to put something in there.
So in some ways that links back to your question that you posed to us to reflect on earlier from Whaia Janice, around how our practice is grounded and shaped and within mātauranga Māori. So what you're saying in part there is that actually the more mātauranga Māori and tikanga tools we have ourselves, the more able we are for those to come forward when they're needed. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I am saying that, but I'm also saying that you have to be doing the stuff with whānau. It's not enough to be studying it. How the knowledge becomes embedded, or the new knowledge comes out from you, and you can connect it into the things that you know, is by actually doing some stuff, by doing it and by trying it. And it can be scary, and we do make mistakes. But that we have to know when to step back, to keep our own mana intact, and to help rebuild others to keep their mana intact. Yeah.
So I'm kind of pulling on some earlier questions that came up to those of us who are more the kind of researchers and theorists in this team. One of them was around, you know, if you're not fluent, you're Māori practitioner, not fluent in Te Reo Māori, you know, can you be operating in this kaupapa Māori space was one of them, you know, and so, and how do you operate in that? So I guess, what are your reflections to those people who are starting the journey, I guess, and bringing this mātauranga and tikanga and they'll, you know, for themselves, in terms of their, you know, their own practice? What would be your kind of reflection or your, I guess, I'm trying to avoid the word advice, for people on that journey?
Well, start the journey. Start the first step, take a deep breath and karakia. Yeah, there's lots of things that we have to do, multiple things all the time, because we're also parents. We're also mothers and fathers, and we're also grandparents, we're uncles and aunties, and we've got a myriad of other things to do as well. But it's all part and parcel of being Māori. So, you know, again, I also think about this stuff as work, part of our life, is life part of our work. You know, it is, we become, and we are, and we grow into, we transform, I suppose, those parts of ourselves that are transformable in what we're doing in our practice mahi. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not sure it makes sense to me. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's what you were saying too earlier, like, you know, kaupapa Māori and mātauranga Māori for us is also a part of the journey, right? Like, there's no end destination. When Pau was speaking in his webinar, and when Linda's spoken, you know, they talk about this kind of ongoing mātauranga.
Yeah.
I mean, in Lokawa, they would talk about it as that kind of spectrum, right? Like, you never reach the end of the journey in mātauranga Māori. We're constantly on journey.
Yeah.
Like transformation, right?
Yeah, we're never too young to start, and we're never too old to keep going. Yeah, to learn more. And I think it's, I think one of the healthiest things for me as a practitioner and for the organisation has been is that we have had strong elders who were, you know, who were native speakers to start with, that were also accomplished in Te Ao Pākehā. And yeah, they took on educating us. We also took on teaching them about decolonisation and decolonising. And so we had some strong elders around us, and it's a must. The interesting thing of them now is that we've moved into being those elders. We're moving into being those elders because they've all gone. But we have the privilege of having talked to people who knew, you know, and then who knew the elders from the 40s, and then who actually knew Te Whiti o Rongamai and other elders who knew things like that. So we've got that continuity as well. Yeah, and also within our own tribal area, and also within our name and the whakapapa connections. They all add value, I suppose. They add knowledge, and they also add a layer of noho puku, being an area of being, sit quietly, be humble, watch and learn. Yeah.
We do have another question, but I want to leave it for my final question because it's kind of a little bit fun. But I wanted just maybe to give you an opportunity when you were talking about that, the history in Taranaki, if you could maybe give us a little bit of background on the name of Tūtama Wahine o Taranaki, just so people can get that context.
Oh, right, okay. Well, the name Tūtama Wahine o Taranaki was gifted to us from our koe, Auntie Marge, Matarena Rauputa, and Dr. Huirangi Waikiripuru, because they saw that we were doing the mahi that they saw their koe and their elders doing, and which of course relates us back to Parihaka and the Pārua of Parihaka, and what the prophets Tuhukaka and Te Whiti o Rongamai said to the remaining woman when the men were taken, e tūtama wahine I te wā o te kore. And so that that is for women to carry on, you know, and fill all the duties that were, you know, that void that has been left by the men being taken away, being stolen actually. And so there's interconnectedness to that. You know, one of my my aunties, she was named Tamawahine, and we also have the wharekai at Hawaii, named Tamawahine as well. Yeah, so there's all these other interconnecting things around that name. It's not a casual name. You know, it's not. It carries responsibility, and we are always mindful of honouring and respecting and maintaining, and in fact enhancing and reclaiming the mana of our tūpuna kuia, who suffered during that time of te pāua. Not just te pāua at Parihaka, but the pāua tuatahi was in Waitara, in your lands, you know, where in 1860 when Waitara was confiscated, where the first shots were fired that reverberated throughout the nation in relation to the thefts of all our lands. Yeah, so there's all those sorts of interconnectors as well. But we, for ourselves, so there's that, and we added on our part around, we are a tangata whenua development and liberation service. And then we put our own iwi name into it, because we're quite iwi based as well. We're based in town, but we're all iwi people. The majority of us here are iwi. So this is about liberation. Yeah.
So there's a pātai, there's pātai from Peter Mataida, who says, tēnā koe te rangatira. One of my whanaunga, Dr. Kitty Dell, who writes about whānau economic security, makes the point that we have lots of other around succession and land shares that can deeply divide us and create intergenerational hurt and trauma when some feel justifiably aggrieved. What's your whakaaro about how we could reconcile and address this without having to resort to lawyers or into whānau violence?
Right. Yeah, that's a question that I think probably most of us have asked ourselves at some point. It's a huge question, and I think it's a slow journey. But it has to be a consistent journey, and somebody has to lead, and other leaders, yeah, not just one person, but it has to be led by whānau members who are prepared to stick with it, set out a plan, and then stick with it. And I won't get into my own whānau about this stuff either, because we all suffer from it, and it's designed. It's not an accident that this has happened to our family, but again, it's around, and I think it's around wānanga. Yeah, to me, everything comes back to wānanga. Either wānanga as practitioners, with whānau as a wānanga, or with our own whānau as wānanga. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that there are, and one of the things that we did before lockdown, Ngaropi, as you remember with He Oranga Ngākau, is that we went to Hawaii and we spent time with those practitioners in the area of ho'oponopono or huhurongo that we're talking about. And I know Peter's in Hawaii, and so he'll be aware, he'll know this, that kōrero that happens there. And one of the things that we came back with after that gathering was, really how do we empower whānau? How do we become empowered as whānau members to actually do exactly what you're saying, to bring back in whānau, to bring back in wānanga, to bring back in those processes of healing that actually are at whānau level before they escalate out into something else. And I guess the other point around this is that a lot of, this has been created through historical trauma. So what may have become intergenerational whānau trauma is actually created by historical trauma, by land confiscation, baupatu, all of those things. And that when we remember, Huirangi talking about baupatu and the notion of lau and patu, that we're continually being
Yeah.
land confiscation is like being beaten over and over and over again. That's what that term is. That's why we use it as a term for confiscation, because it's a constant beating of us.
It's never ending.
Never
Until
ending.
until the whenua is returned.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for those pātai. I want to end with this pātai from an anonymous attendee. If you could take one of our beautiful Māori names back off one of the racist structures or government departments or the likes in this land, which one would be first? And I've got hashtag removal wish list. And if this attendee wants to do that on Twitter, please link me in so I can be a part of the thread. But yeah, which one would be first? Ngaropi, for you.
Well, I won't even say it in Māori, but I'm going to say OT.
I see.
And I think everyone gets the message. I think I've always refused to say it, call them the Ministry for Children.
Yeah.
I refuse to call them, because they are not, never have been, and never will be. Yeah. But there's probably a whole list. Yeah. You asked for one. I'm not sure I should have answered it because that person was anonymous, but that's okay.
No, I think that's probably not a surprise to most people online here that would be the number one hashtag removal wish list.
Yeah, and that's not a criticism of the people that gave it, but it's well, maybe it is. It's not intended to be a criticism of the people that put that name there, but it should not be there.
Mm. Well, as we've said many times in other webinars and movements like Hands Off Our Tamariki and the Tribunal, the organisation has failed to do what that name indicates as its role, and continues to fail in that manner. And so,
so it's the thing that I talk about, transforming the gift, is the gift can't be gifted really on our part until we have that part has been transformed. Then it becomes that. We can't give it hoping that will transform it. It doesn't. Right. Well, I don't know. In some universe, it might work that way, but how I think about things in relation to what I know about Te Ao Māori, it doesn't. And I don't know that much. I know enough, though. It does not work like that. Yeah.
Fine. So our time's up for this session. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe. Te whanaunga mō au kōrero I tēnei wā me o whakaaro ki te hui I te ahiahi nei, no reira tino rawi nā kōrero, tino rawi nā rawi mi, nau I whakaatu mai ki a tātou katoa I tēnei wā, no reira tēnei te mihi atu. O taranaki ki a taranaki, tēnā koe, tēnā tātou katoa. So I just want to, again, on behalf of all of us, thank, Ngaropi for that really amazing beginning to our practitioners kōrero, and beginning to take the mahi and really reflect on resources, not only resources, but actually our own praxis, our own relationship between our theory and our practice, and how we can reflect on that, and your integration of all the earlier webinars, how you brought those forward into this, and that is a real indication of praxis and the way in which the theory and the practice that we've been trying to work at together as a team can really come together really powerfully. And so I want to really acknowledge your opening of this part of the webinar series, and to let people know that in 2 weeks' time we're going to have Professor Bonnie Duran, who's going to be talking about Indigenous mindfulness in terms of healing in context of violence, and then we're going to be followed by Betty Seal, who's going to talk about the cultural frameworks, specific cultural frameworks that she and many others were a part of developing, and which really kind of pushed this project forward in many ways. And Betty's been a very sound and solid support to us, and working alongside also Tūtuma Wahine o Taranaki, and Marae, and then followed by Marae Barassi, who is a Black woman from London, who Betty is currently doing some work with IMCAN, and they work with Black and minority ethnic groups in London. So that's going to be, and then we're going to round off the practitioner series with Hene Wirangi Kohu, one of our own. So we're going to do a circle around the world and come back. And so we hope that you can share the links and the registrations and come back on for the next for the next part of the practitioner kōrero. No reira, Ngaropi, tēnā koe, ka huri ki a koe, he rea whānau I whakakapi tō tātou hui. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā kōrua, tēnā rā hoki koe e te mārai kura no taranaki maunga, tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe e Ngaropi kōrua koriaini, ana ka mutu tātātai nei hui I te karakia. Hikitia te rongo mai whiti o tēnei o ngā hui topa, tukua kia ia, tukua kia oe, ko rangi nui ki runga, ko papatuanuku ki raro, tūturu whakamaua kia tēnā, haumi e hui e taiki.
Taiki, tēnā tātou.
Tēnā tātai.